Welcome to Antique Sprinklers. Today I have a combination of L.R. Nelson and Rainbird equipment in front of me here. And that's because we're going to talk a little bit about a division of L.R. Nelson called Rainy Sprinkler Sales. And so L.R. Nelson had been founded by Lewin Nelson back in 1911, primarily selling hose repair couplings, but also a variety of hose end sprinklers. And very soon they expanded to have underground irrigation equipment as well, including quick couplers and rotors and spray heads. And then Rainbird was founded basically with the patenting of the impact sprinkler by Orton Engelhardt. And it was his partner Clement Lefetre that really grew the company after Orton went back to farming. And they were primarily interested in agricultural irrigation at the time, almost exclusively impact sprinklers, both full circle and part circle, pretty much every description. So in 1952, the company L.R. Nelson passed from Lewin Nelson to his son Russell Baldwin Nelson. And he had the idea to team up with Rainbird to sell a more complete line of turf sprinklers and to help Rainbird get into markets that they weren't really in at that point in time. So he conceived of this division of L.R. Nelson called Rainy Sprinkler Sales. And they were focused primarily on the 37 eastern United States. And they would bring the product lines together. Nelson did not have its own impact sprinkler. Obviously, Rainbird had a full range of them. And Nelson was a little bit ahead in the underground irrigation industry than Rainbird was at the time. And so it was a good marriage. And what you see in front of me here is the result of that. So I have a Nelson quick coupler, and this is certainly not a quick coupler from the 1950s. This is kind of the next generation that came from the quick couplers that Nelson was selling then. But what is important to me anyhow is this is basically the size the quick coupler would have been. It was an 1-inch inlet quick coupler. That was the smallest version they were selling at the time. And the quick coupler itself had these Acme threads grooved into it. And you can see the reverse of those threads on the bottom of this quick coupler key. So over here, we have a Nelson quick coupler key that has a Rainbird sprinkler screwed into it. And that's how they would have gone to market for large turf systems, you know, athletic fields, golf courses, and they've got a whole list on their brochure there. And I'll show you a brochure from 1963 that I think shows it really nicely. The idea being Rainbird has the best sprinklers to put on these things. Nelson has these devices. And it's true that during the time that Rainy sprinklers existed, Rainbird built out its own line of quick couplers and pop-up rotors and spray heads too. And those ended up getting included to a large extent in the line. And my belief is that they continued that arrangement while Rainbird beefed up its presence east of the Mississippi. You know, it was a Southern California brand. Nelson was a Midwestern brand. And through its hose end business, which was dominant, they were everywhere. So it would have been a way for Rainbird to open new markets to them. And so this particular sprinkler is a Rainbird 35. It's a 3/4 inch inlet, adjustable part circle sprinkler. It has the baffle on it, or this would be the DA variant, the do-all that Rainbird called it. And it has a very early PJ tube on it as well. And it still runs great, even though this thing's probably from, at the youngest, the very, very early 1970s. But I'm going to guess that this is a 1960s sprinkler. That's my view. Probably the second generation after the first 35s were put out in the late 1950s. And the bottom end of this quick coupler key still works today in modern Acme threaded quick couplers. Even though this one would have been put onto something that was a complete bronze body, perhaps with an aluminum lid on it. They called that their silver top lids, and the claim to fame was it was easier to see because these guys back in the day, they would be direct buried right up to the top of them. And then you're a night waterman, so you're coming along with your flashlight trying to catch the top of one of these in the dark there. A pretty difficult job, but they managed to do it. I'm not entirely sure when the relationship between Rainbird and L.R. Nelson dissolved. I believe it might have lasted into the 1970s. So I think certainly by the time I came along, it had long been a thing of the past by the 1980s. But it's kind of an interesting an interesting little era in irrigation where two competitors joined forces to one, on Nelson's case, build out their product line, and then two, on Rainbird's place, build out their geographical representation. And I'm sure it worked great for both of them. So that's what I have to say about Rainy sprinkler sales. Everybody knows what happened to Rainbird. They went on to bigger and better things. And L.R. Nelson in 1971 sold the company to a guy named Dave Ransberger. And Russell's son, Bertram, bought the division of L.R. Nelson called Nelson Irrigation Corporation and moved it out to Walla Walla, Washington. And that's the Nelson Ag Company that is still in business out there. So there's a family connection there. That's how the company split back in '71. Nelson has since been sold. They were divided into thirds back around 2006 or 2008 between Signature and Bosch and a French company, Henri, I think is the name of the company, mostly for the fountain stuff. And so you still see some Nelson stuff here and there sold. I think the hardware line is mostly owned by Bosch these days. But both founding firms in American irrigation, and they came together for a few decades to expand both their product lines and their geographical reach. That's all I've got for you. Please remember to check out my playlist of other content creators' videos that I find interesting. It grows every week. And I've also created another playlist that has some of the deeper dives into the history of a product line than I do in these typical weekly ones. So in there we've got the history of the Buckner cam rotor, we've got the history of the rocker jet, the history of the Rainbird turfbird impacts, and then there's another guy who's done some very interesting historical stuff around Skinner and Thompson, so I included 4 videos from that gentleman as well, and I encourage you to check them out if you have an interest in the history of this industry. Thanks for watching.